Read, Karen?
I'll second.
Okay. My name is Ed Nardi, Acting Chair of the Natural Resources Commission for this evening's meeting, and I am calling this public meeting to order at 7 p.m. Tonight's NRC meeting will be a hybrid in-person and Zoom meeting. We have a microphone set up on the commission table, and plans will be projected through the TV monitor. If you are presenting via Zoom, please turn on your audio and microphone when it is time for you to speak. Following the presentation by the petitioner and questions from the commission, members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comments. Please identify yourself with name and address for the record. You can also raise your hand from your phone by dialing *9 and use *6 to unmute. All video screens will be turned off with the exception of any commissioners attending virtually and the current petitioner. Once the commission has acted on an application, the petitioner is free to leave the meeting. In the event of any technical difficulties, all matters on the agenda that have not been heard will be automatically continued to the July 10th meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. At this time, I would ask the commissioners to introduce themselves. Gary?
Gary Kleiman.
Nick Pappas.
Bill?
Bill Cremesa.
And Sarah?
Sarah Grimwood.
Okay, thank you all. All right, first up this evening on the agenda is a public comment period of 10 minutes with no more than 2 minutes allocated to any one speaker. And the public comment is limited to items that are not on the agenda this evening. Do we have any public comment? Neil, do you see any? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the approval of the April 10th, 2024 minutes.
Probably not worth mentioning, but there were 2 periods at the end of vernal pool on top of page 6.
So astute.
Karen.
Really good. There were 2 minor ones that I sent to Karen.
I mean,
Okay.
otherwise, they're great minutes as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Could I have a motion on that?
Move that we approve the minutes of April 10th meeting as edited. I second.
All right, and the vote, Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. Next item on the agenda, commissioner comments. Any comments from the commissioners this evening? All right, seeing none. Delia, director's update, please.
So we have our conservation crew on board. They've started for the summer, 2 members, and they are primarily mowing right now. That is there's a lot of mowing to be done.
Mhm.
So if there are areas that the commission sees or the members of the public see that need attention, please let us know. We also have an intern who is volunteering with us. It's Anka Voss's son, actually, and we have had a project that we've been trying to get up and running for a little bit of time, and he is taking this on, which is to inventory all of the infrastructure that we have at conservation lands. So kiosks, benches, mutt-mitts, bog bridges, and so we're gonna basically have that for each property and understand what the condition is, and this will help us prioritize repairs and replacements.
Yeah.
At White Pond, Higgins Environmental Associates has begun work for the season. So they installed 2 weeks ago, they installed the apods and have already been collecting and removing pollen from the pond. And so we are looking forward to that occurring over the season and another year, hopefully, fingers crossed, of no cyanobacteria blooms at the pond. There was the select board designated an advisory committee for MCI Concord. So that is now established. I think that was at Monday's meeting. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date, but I believe it was Monday's meeting. So they're gonna be working on that. And then the Warner's Pond Task Force will hold its next meeting tomorrow night. That will be here. And they will also hold a public forum next Thursday, June 20th at 5:30 at Harvey Wheeler.
Ah.
Yeah.
Busy times.
Yeah.
Right. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Delia. All right, let's see, before we get going on the applications, just to note for the record that the notice of intent for 166 Commonwealth Ave, DEP file 137-1643, that application has been withdrawn without prejudice. So, just a note for the record. So we'll jump to our one continuance this evening. That's a notice of intent for 129 to 147 Lowell Road, DP file 137-1673.
They're here? Wow.
Good evening, guys.
No.
Sure. Good evening, folks. Just for the record, my name is Mike Howard from Epsilon Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of you and I, and my colleague. Our client, Melissa Davis, is on the screen in front of us.
And Brian Trombley from Energy North.
Thank you.
Hempstead, New Hampshire. Yeah.
And I don't see Steve Lowe, who you met at the prior hearing with my colleague, Greg, but I think Steve may be calling in as well too. Steve's the LSP for this project.
I'm online.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
There we go, confirmation. I'll defer to the commission and Delia. My colleague Greg covered this last public hearing. Greg had 3 Concom hearings tonight. He could be in 2, not 3 at one time. So, I said I'll pitch in for this one. My understanding is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this hearing was continued primarily to give the engineering department some time to review the notice of intent, as I understand it. To the extent the commission has more questions that you want to go over tonight, we have the same team here, and we're happy to answer whatever questions the commission might have. We'll defer to you, Mr. Chair, as to.
Thank you.
So I did talk with our assistant town engineer and he didn't raise any additional issues or concerns than what we had talked about. And those, I believe, have been resolved as of the meeting last week. And so we do have an order of conditions ready for the commission to consider.
Yeah, I didn't have anything generally specific. It was a little bit more fact finding. I think we got some answers last week and recognizing that it's, you're in process, if you will, in terms of investigation and obviously removal of some old equipment. So, it's not a defined project in front of us, right? You're kind of doing some continuing to fact find out there a little bit as well.
Correct. That data collection process will lead to other actions and actions. Of course, we'll continue to coordinate closely with the commission and staff. No worries on that front, but this is the initial phase to kind of put that puzzle together.
And as the order of conditions is drafted, you're comfortable with the process that? they'll
Right,
have
so we
going forward?
conditioned it more heavily than we would condition other projects because it is approving, something that is not as defined as the commission
Mhm.
generally likes to see.
Yeah.
But the sort of long and short of it is that there's work occurring in a wetland resource area that does require some
Yeah.
additional exploratory work. And so, we've, commission has seen the conditions.
Right.
It includes conditions that, require, the RAM plan to be submitted prior to any work occurring. Obviously, all work will occur within that. We will do the pre-construction with the licensed site professional as well as the contractor. And all reporting will be provided as it is, made available.
Okay, any further comments from the commission?
No.
All right, are there any public comments regarding this application? All right, not seeing any or hearing any.
I move that we close the hearing and issue an order of conditions for 129 to 147 Lowell Road, DEP file number 137-1673 with findings A and B. Standard conditions 1 through 20 and special conditions 21 through 54.
Second,
All right, and the vote, Gary,
aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye, excuse me, aye.
Thank you, Sarah, and I am an I as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
folks.
Yeah, have a good evening and
Thank
good
you.
luck with the continuing
I'm
project.
sure we'll be in touch down the road.
I'm sure. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Close.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So our first new application this evening, which is an RDA Town of Concord, Public Works Department, regarding Turning Mill Road, Silver Hill Road, and Crestbrook Road, RDA file 24-8. And who's with us this evening?
Yeah, hi, good evening. Jason Gallant with Wright Pierce. Did you want to call Kev too? Sure. Yeah, so Chuck Karen on behalf of Karen Environmental and Jack Morowski on behalf of Water District.
Good evening, guys.
Thank you. So, we've prepared a brief presentation, where this is the first time you folks have seen this project, and 6 or 7 slides you'd like to go through. So with that, if there aren't any preliminary questions, we'd like to kind of kick off and introduce this project to you.
Okay, sure, that'd be great.
So, are you gonna run the presentation, Steely?
Mr. Burt. if
Oh, okay,
I-
Bert's gonna run, okay, good.
You want to switch to?
All right, yeah, good. We could just go to the next slide. Thank you. So as far as the overview, we've gone through the introductions as far as the consultant team and the town team. We'll review the project with you. This is a 2-phase project, so we're focusing on phase 1 this year. We'll go over that. We'll go over the overview of the RDA we submitted, try to talk through next steps, answer any questions that you folks have, and then our contact information is, of course, included in the presentation. So next slide, please, Fran. So this is a project, for those that aren't familiar with the area, off of Monument Street in the northeast quadrant of town, near the border with Carlisle. This is a late 1960s, early 1970s construction. 44 or so homes in the neighborhood. So the features of the roadway are 2-way travel lanes throughout. There's a couple different widths that we're dealing with there. It's generally a residential neighborhood. And then we're looking at 14-foot travel lanes on Silver Hill and Crestbrook with partial curbing through the area. So in some spots there's granite curb, in some spots there's bituminous curbing, some spots there's no curbing. And then with Turning Mill Road, there's 11-foot lanes and then partial curbing there as well. So the pavement throughout the limits of the project has been determined to be in poor condition, and we'll get into a couple different treatments that are recommended for pavement rehabilitation. And then we have a series of 8-inch AC and there's some 10-inch, but most of the residential services are down to 8-inch asbestos cement water main with, like I said, those 44 residential services that we're dealing with on this job. There's also closed storm drainage, and most of it's 12-inch with some 15-inch reinforced concrete piping that connects that storm drainage system. That's the overview of existing conditions. As far as the background, certainly there are ongoing pavement maintenance issues at Turning Mill near Monument Street, where you come off Monument Street, go down, there's a pond on the left-hand side there with some overflow into the roadway. So we're looking to retrain some of that drainage as part of this project. There's, based on the age of it, the 8-inch and 10-inch AC pipe for the water main is looking to be scheduled for replacement as part of this project. But the drainage system is generally going to remain intact as it is. There'd be, the tops of the structures will be modified to receive the new pavement. And maybe there'll be a couple of structures that get rebuilt based on condition, but generally we're looking at the same configuration, the same level of treatment. And then we are looking to install it's 300 feet on each side of the road, so about 600 feet in total of underdrain as you come onto that section of Turning Mill Road to try to take that groundwater and collect it into the system as opposed to, or the surface water there, as opposed to have it be ponding in the roadway. So that's the drainage update. And then the project, as far as a funding standpoint, we understand that this is all local funding for this project. So water and sewer is involved, as well as engineering division of public works. As far as our role, we've been on the project since March, and we started data collection. So we did survey natural resources, Chuck flagged the wetlands. We've done some utility coordination, and then the town has supported a subsurface data program where there are a series of test pits and borings that have been done throughout the corridor to inform the matrix of soils beneath the road, and recommendations will be forthcoming as far as what we're looking to do to reconstruct. We're currently in the blue highlighted area in that preliminary design phase where we've gone through and done alternatives analysis and got our design to about a 50% level, and we're in the permitting process right now. The first phase of this project is looking to go to construction this summer. So we're looking to wrap up, should all things go well, our engineering efforts, so that this can get out to bidding in July and then be constructed so that at least the utility work, including the storm drainage and base pavements down for November. And then the intent is that next year, when phase 2 is done, the entirety of the job will get top pavement. So next slide, please.
So all the pipe replacement is this year?
In phase 1, yeah. So this kind of delineates the phase 1 limits. So we're looking at about 1,900 feet of full depth reconstruction along Silver Hill. And then it's almost 1,100 feet of full depth reconstruction on Turning Mill. And then 800 linear feet of mill and resurface on Crestbrook. So Crestbrook's in good condition compared to the other two. We don't have to fully dig up that road. There'll be trench work where there's utilities that need to go in for the water, but that'll be trench patch and all the appropriate compaction to get those trenches put in. So one thing to note is that the proposed profile of the roadway is pretty much going to match what's there now. We're going to formalize the crown to properly direct the drainage. Except for at Turning Mill, we're gonna slightly raise to be able to take the dip out and manage again the water near the pond there as you're coming in down on the left to be able to deal with that. But the curb lines are pretty much gonna remain the same, and there's room there. The road is depressed to raise it up without extending the side slopes outside of the right of way there. So we've been careful to keep all of our work within the right of way. So with this phase, we're looking at about 3,800 linear feet of new water main, and that's going to be upgraded to ductile iron pipe. And then, like I mentioned, 300 linear feet of under drain each side of the road near Turning Mill. And then the other part of that is that we're looking to restore curbing where it is now, and we're at preliminary design, so there may be or may not be some additional curbing that's added in, but where there's curbing, we're looking to keep that there now. So that's an overview of our first phase, and the grade out piece, that's the second phase. We'll come back later. That's intended to be 2025 construction, so we'll come back with a subsequent meeting for you with you folks for discussion on that. So next slide, please. So RDA overview and I'm gonna kind of go through some of this and then I'm gonna push it to Chuck a little bit here. So no proposed widening the existing roadway. So we're gonna maintain that curb to curb. We're gonna try very carefully to manage how far we get into people's driveways to make sure that we're not pushing roadway drainage out of the corridor in a way that it's not acting now. As I mentioned, limited work on storm drainage. All that work is intended to be within the paved roadway limits. The water main replacement is also, for the large part, in the existing paved roadway. There are a few minor sections where we still need to do some identification. It's all within the right of way, but it might be just off the shoulder, and that'll be basically abandoned in place, and then the new water line will stay within the roadway. So we're looking to minimize trench work on the edge of the road also. So as I mentioned, we're in the right of way. The majority of the work is proposed outside of the buffer zone in the riverfront areas. And when we first met with staff, we were talking about a proposal for exemption, both under the Wetlands Protection Act and under the bylaw. And as we were talking with staff, it was determined that there may be a gray area there, and being, in the interest of being good stewards of infrastructure, we wanted to take this opportunity to submit the RDA, even though there may be an ultimate exception decision, to have this public meeting and open up for public comment. So anything you want to add there?
No, I don't think, the only thing I would say is the river, just to clarify, we don't really only have buffer zone on this phase.
Right, yeah, yeah, the
A
rivers,
little bit of riverfront that there is on phase.
Phase two, right,
Okay.
yeah, so when we had originally looked at this, we were thinking we were gonna come in with a. Exemption for the entire project, and we would try to permit it all at once and then divvy it up from construction phasing. As far as the bidding goes, but then we decided sort of later on that we would in fact divide it into the phase one, phase two for the purposes of the permit discussion, understanding that there's some work in phase two that we ought to have a little bit bigger discussion about. Want to call
There was, in the phase one project, there would be some limited work within the turning mill and monument intersection to clean up some of the configuration. This is on the outskirts of our water distribution system. And historically, there used to be an interconnection with the abutting town, which is defunct now. So the configuration is a little bit wonky and we want to clean that up. So it's effectively in that intersection. So it's not much more than what Jason presented.
Yeah, we did show that in our plans, but in the overview plan, it's hard to see that extra 15 feet out into and 30 feet down into Monument Street. So, yes, so thanks, Bert. We'll take a look at the next one there. As far as next steps, so certainly we want to hear any feedback that this group has. We're looking to finalize our preliminary road and water utility design, complete the final design, and then, as I mentioned, the sort of schedule wise, we get out to construction bids and get into construction in phase one this year is the intent. So sort of a fast track project for us, certainly, having started, really got underway in March with an aspirational goal to get out really 4th of July for bids. It looks like we'll be out a little bit further than that. Some of the information gathering is taking a little bit longer than we had hoped, but we're still pretty well on track to get a successful project out on behalf of the town this year and then finish phase two next year, should all things go well. So I think that's my summary. I think that's all I
Is
have.
there a culvert on Turning Mill down near the pond?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
there is,
yeah.
not from that pond, but,
In that area?
there's where I have the wetlands flagged on
yeah.
both sides of the roads, there's a culvert right in there located.
There's no work in the, no change in the culvert?
No,
No, no, yeah, that's why I was hesitating, because we're not planning on replacing that, we're basically planning on. So we did go through and do, the drainage report, hydrology, hydraulics analysis, and determined that from a conveyance standpoint, things seem reasonable. So it's been working for so long, let's not get in there and dig up
There's no
some.
obstruction or anything?
Correct.
Okay.
there's actually there's one off.
Yeah.
Silver Hill as well, where there's
Yeah.
one on both sides of the road.
Yeah, just a question for my edification. You mentioned, I don't know, sub drainage, if you will, or something to that effect on
Under
Turning
drain?
Mill?
Yeah.
Under drainage, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Is that when you raise that road a little bit at the dip, if you will?
Yes.
Is that just providing more, gravel under that roadway so it can
Yeah, so-
absorb the water?
Yeah,
I'm just
so it's
curious.
basically, it's a trench that'll get dug and there'll be a perforated pipe at the bottom of that trench and then it gets stone fill. And the point is it's trying to take water that would either be close to the surface, either coming out of slopes because the road's in a little bit of a cut there,
Mm,
or water that's gonna collect, because that pond is a little bit deep and we wanna try to cut that off as opposed to have it come out over the road. So it's to depress that drainage and then put it directly into the stormwater drainage system.
got it, okay, thank you.
Is there been some process for notifying the abutters and everyone around there? 'Cause I live in the neighborhood and I haven't seen
You haven't
anything.
seen any of this?
No,
Hmm.
I live on Monument Street, right at the head of Turning Mill,
Mhm.
across from.
Yeah, so our understanding, and we'll circle back, we partnered with DPW engineering and we're never gonna say that our client didn't do this, so. But we'll work with them to see where we are. Part of this,
Just given how extensive it is and all the pavement work. I
Yeah.
Hope people aren't surprised this summer.
right, so part of, yeah, Jeff?
I think Steve wants to speak to this.
Yeah, Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Hey, we've been down and sorry, I'm sick across the street. So it's, to make, preface. The answer to that is that we were planning to get a design that we can present to the public. So we can answer a lot of questions regarding, the neighborhood would have for us. And we are fast tracking this project simply because we want to get water into the ground and get some new pavement where it was more torn up. And that's why it's, we didn't make time to have an initial meeting with the public. But we have been, communicating with individuals out there, in terms of concern. So I think, the general public is aware of what we're doing. But we will plan meetings with the public to make sure that they understand and they're prepared for the construction.
Yeah, so, because when we were going out, we're doing test pits or borings and we're doing some survey out there, so there were, door-to-door notifications. But right, as far as what the overall plan is, as Steve said, it's fast track, we're trying to make sure staff's on board, we're presenting as the consultant, and then we'll, yes, come back out.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the commissioner?
No, thanks.
Sarah, you good? Okay, any public comment regarding this project? All right, not seeing any, I think there is a recommendation. Gary?
Yeah, I move that we close and issue a negative determination number 3 with the following conditions for is this Town of Concord RDA file number 24-8 at Silver Hill and Turning Mill and Chesbrook Road. Condition 1, a pre-construction conference will be held with DNR staff prior to commencement of work. Condition 2, after project has been completed, the applicant shall submit a letter to the NRC stating that all the work has been conducted in accordance with all the conditions of this determination of applicability. Any changes from the RDA should be described.
No, second. Second. Thank you, Bill, and I'll take the vote. Gary?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well.
Completion, would that be phased or at the end of the second phase?
This phase.
This phase, since.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to a second. phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be back November, December with a completion on this. Very
Okay,
good.
well, good luck with the project over the summer.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's see. All right, so I think the next up is a extension request, Town of Concord, Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, DEP file 137-1564.
It's Matt. Mark?
Matt, are you?
Matt,
Hey, Matt, how are you? Name and.
good. How are you guys?
Good. Name and address for the record, please, Matt.
Matt Kearney. I work for Greenman Peterson. We're at 181 Ballard Vale Street in Wilmington.
Thank you.
So the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is mostly constructed through the Concord section. As you're all probably aware, it was constructed up to Powder Mill Road as part of Phase 2C. And the remainder of the project to the town line is being constructed along with the Sudbury portion of the project. The order of conditions was issued in 2021, and we're just looking to extend it as the project wraps up. Hopefully in the next month. I got some information from the contractor. The remaining operations are planting, top course of paving, 2-inch, the 2-foot dense grade shoulders, striping, the signage, and then just any punch list items. So as I mentioned, they are mostly done with the Concord portion, and they're just going to do all the paving operation at once. So that's why it's kind of dragging out a little bit. So they can go from Sudbury all the way through Concord in one mobilization.
Do you know when that paving is tentatively scheduled for at this point?
So they said that they are hoping to do the final paving in early to middle July, with the striping and signage to be completed after that.
So right around the corner, really. That's good.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Comments from the commission? Any
No.
questions?
Great.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, seems like you're pretty close, so that's great.
Yep.
Any comments from the public? All right, not seeing any. If I could have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we issue a 1-year extension for DEP file 1371564, the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, to a 1-year extension to July 9th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you, Nick, and we'll take the vote. Gary?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you, Matt. Good
Thank you
luck
all.
wrapping up the project.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. All right, let's see, the next one up is under an entitled enforcement order, military offices, 71-107 Lowell Road. DEP file 137-1315. Good evening.
Evening. I'm Dan Bailey. I'm a land use and environmental attorney at Pierce Atwood in Boston. And with me here tonight is Monique Allen, who's our landscaping consultant, designer. She's from the Garden Continuum in Medfield. The other part of the team is Sean Malone at the Oak Consulting Group, who's a civil engineer. Sean couldn't be here tonight, but I'll cover quickly, and as much as a lawyer can, what has been going on with the engineering. This is an enforcement order from last September. The enforcement order note, and it goes back to an order of conditions that was issued in 2016. I think the planting was done in 2018. There are two open items. Commission asked for documentation that adequate compensatory storage has been constructed. And it also directed Military Market, of course, you all know, right across the street, to complete mitigation plantings per the plan approved with the order of conditions. We're effectively here asking the commission to approve the compensatory storage as constructed, and I'll go into that in a little bit, and also to approve an alternative planting plan that varies from what was originally approved by the commission. Okay, so I'll go over the compensatory storage and then Monique will walk you through. We do have some plans when we get to Monique that we submitted to the commission. You probably all have them on your screens anyway. Yes.
So
Yeah,
I just might suggest the compensatory storage is still being reviewed by Public Works, so.
It's kind of out of
I
our,
don't
I was not gonna say much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't, and nothing's been submitted to the commission, so
Oh, okay.
I
think-
think maybe let's just
Yeah.
move straight to the.
yeah, just a quick question on the
Yeah.
compensatory. So was that sent in just over the last couple of weeks? Or has that been around?
The
for a
comp
while?
storage has been back and forth for months.
Okay,
Yeah,
so now,
so the CAD plan has just been, was just recently provided to engineering.
okay, so they're gonna
And-
take their review of it and
So there
next
has
meeting?
been a review and there's some questions that.
So they'll go back and forth with them?
Yes, so
Okay.
I think
All
it's
right.
very close.
I think so too.
But I don't think it's worth bringing up tonight because the commission hasn't seen any of the conversations, so really there's nothing for the commission to review on that at this point. We're just trying to
Yeah,
get
well-
everything squared away.
And I'm not surprised to hear you say that. And when Sean said, I've got a conflict, I said, don't worry about it. I don't think we're gonna get into,
Yeah.
the engineering all that much.
Right.
The engineering is always best solved by the engineers outside the four walls of the hearing room.
yeah, it's usually that component is typically beyond our pay grade in terms of, generally engineering looks at that.
Yeah, I got the letters and I just look at the calculations
Okay.
and I say.
So my guess is engineering and the proponent will go back and forth and
Yeah,
hopefully
and
come
it's,
to a
it's very
resolution.
close.
Great.
It's
Good
not
to hear.
quite there.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the so-called planting list. And if you want to give us I think we did get your documentation for, I guess, a limited area on site.
Yep,
just
so
a-
I'll just go through this
Sure.
area and
Please.
kind of give you what I've got. So I'm coming to the whole game late. I came in the fall of 2023, so last year. And I was asked to look at
Sorry,
the,
just name it and address for the record.
oh, sorry, yes, Monique Allen, the Garden Continuum,
Whatever you already did.
67 West Street, Medfield, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Is that good?
All set.
Okay, all right, good.
You're good to go.
So I came to this property when it was already basically finished, and so. Looked at it with the eye of a conservation commissioner myself, and trying to look at, what looks stable, what looks unstable. These three areas to me all looked unstable. I felt like they needed some more planting and effort. And I needed to sort of separate myself from the old plan and look at it based on the conditions, because the old plan was drafted so long ago. Then it was edited, and the plan that I was given to review did not have consideration for the vegetation that was here. So if you look at it like at zone A, we've got some huge trees. Chief among them is a beautiful oak that's right in the center of that. It's kind of has center stage there. Some pretty poor trees that are along the Kais Road entrance. And then along the left, some, a whole group of hardwoods that are in there that are really quite beautiful. The plan that was submitted to look at it would suggest that all those trees would have had to have been cut down. And it just didn't make any sense to my eye. So I redesigned this, looking at a way to plant fewer plants, but plants that were represented by what was already here. So I went around, there are lots of volunteer crab apples, which are doing quite well. There's winterberry, buttonbush, blueberry. And so I wanted to repeat some of the plants that were already here, but also bring enough diversity that I could get, it is kind of front facing right on Kais Road. So wanted it also to be beautiful, and to have something going on in each of the seasons. So you'll see the plan that I pulled together, brings in native species, plants that can handle being underwater for months at a time. So about half of that zone ends up underwater. So it was really, really important that we had plants that could handle that. And then also plants that would not need a lot of maintenance and care. So a big consideration on my mind when I was looking at this is not a managed landscape site. We actually want to plant it and then let nature have it, and not have it only be successful if it was heavily managed by human hands. So I chose the plants with that in mind and filled the area from the entrance at Kais Road, where the first drain cover is, all the way to where the culvert is that goes under Kais Road, and filled that area. And I sort of hugged the oak so that the oak would come out of the lawn area because it's being kind of chewed up by the town lawnmowers. And so that would protect that oak going forward. I can just keep going, or if I just,
Well, I think if you want to just maybe you might just want to bring up your plans just to highlight those 3 areas,
Yeah.
talk briefly about those so we can.
yep,
So
so
that we
the
understand.
plan, it should be the next picture. Yes,
Yeah.
so you can see right in the center, I've highlighted the oak, and that's where, it's sort of this undulating bed. And in that centerpiece is the oak. And then on the right, you can see the brown dots. These are the trees that I identified that were over on the Kais Road side. And then on the left, these are in a deep, sort of a deep ravine that actually gets full of water. That water comes all the way to those 2 boxes with the X's, which is the culvert that goes under the road. So I kept the existing turf on the, mostly the town land, but you will see that I extended the plantings on the right and left because the lawn isn't doing well in those areas. It's very difficult for it to grow. So I figured it was going to be much better to just have more scrubby vegetation. In reading the Army Corps of Engineers original documents about permitting this floating parking lot, they talked about maintaining a scrub wood. And so that's what I tried to do here, was give us layers of vegetation. So we have the Carpinus there's 2 of them, then there's Viburnum, which is a native species, and then I repeated the Clethra, the winterberry, and the buttonbush, which are already existing on site, and we know they do well, so that'll be good. And then I added Rosa palustris, which is a native rose. It's really beautiful. It takes a lot of abuse. So if we ever get a lot of snow again, I put them close to the sidewalk so that if they get plowed over, they'll just grow right back. And then I did put some herbaceous plants because I'm really trying to just sort of cover the ground as much as possible and not have this area need to be mulched. So carex, which is a native sedge grass, some ferns, and some very low flowering ground cover kinds of plants. The pekara and the zizia. So that is that planting. Okay, so zone B is a very, very different, so I sort of cut it up into zone B and C. So zone B is where you come in to go to the back of Walgreens. So it's the next driveway over. And this area, and I believe I did in this, I also put, did I also include, I did include photos, so if it's helpful, the photos might be more helpful than this plan, so if you go to, yes, right there. So you can see the picture on the left is right at the end of the fence that as you're entering this parking lot, and then there's the light post. Right after it, the land just falls away, and then there's a culvert in here. And, you know, it's got weeds and sort of not so lovely things in it, but it also has some really cool things in it. Like it's got some sedges growing up on their own, some native grasses, native Carex pennsylvanicas growing up. So there are some nice things in there. The area wants to be herbaceously vegetated. So I chose a list of plants that we could put in there that would spread over time. So I put irises that can totally just be underwater and they will just proliferate and spread. I put a large fern, the ostrich fern, which can also deal with a lot of submergence. I put a eupatorium in here, also another beautiful native, really, really good pollinator plant. And then I put Chelone, which is turtle head, also a really, really great pollinator plant. So my idea here was you have this thin stretch of lawn, which is filled with Dutch white clover. And then on that embankment, fill it with these herbaceous plants. It's gonna look like a meadow, basically. It'll look like a floral meadow. It can be submerged underwater. It doesn't need to be mowed. It will die down on its own and then reemerge. And the beautiful thing about this is all these plants will self-seed. So they will continue to seed within the area and keep it stable. The other nice thing is there is a culvert there, and this allows access to the culvert very, very easily. If someone needed to work on that culvert, these plants could be string trimmed down and then go right back. So you wouldn't have to worry about clearing shrubs or pruning or doing anything like that. So that is the zone B, and then if we keep going, we'll see zone C. To the next photo, I think is the best. So this area right now is mostly turf. It's very stable and it is filled with Dutch white clover, which is great. I've actually recommended to the owner that he go over this in the fall and seed in micro clover, because I think that will help to fill in the bald spots. And I've also suggested a no-mow fescue. So a grass that if they were to mow it less, mow less of the area, it would grow up, but not super tall. Then in these two areas, I am proposing that we put in all buttonbush. So buttonbush is a really great plant because it takes infiltration for months on end. And the nature of its root system is that as the water rushes by it, it will collect debris and it creates hummocks. So it actually creates embankment stabilization. So I don't recommend doing a lot of different types of plants. I just recommend doing this one because as a system, as a community in and of itself, it will hold that embankment. And this to me feels like the embankment that's kind of at the most, because it rushes around where the little group of trees is, and then it sort of slows down and then it kind of whips around the corner at the other area. So it felt to me like those two areas needed to be held with the buttonbush.
Okay,
So that's what I got for you.
well, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the explanation of the proposal. So I guess just to start, and I profess I lost track of this because I thought we had talked about this last fall about getting plans, kind of a different set of plans together for the commission. I think at that time, the commission's concern was that the proponent had not planted the site fully. I believe the proponent brought up the issue with that. He thought there were a number of native plants there that he could take credit for, which the commission didn't necessarily argue with. But we did want to have a survey of the entire site in regard to what was planted in regard to the required order of conditions, what the proponent may want to take credit for. And during the survey, he could have highlighted those areas to lessen his burden to meet the requirement of the landscape plan that approved under the order of conditions. And with that in hand, we could have hopefully worked with the proponent saying, well, maybe you get credit for those, which is good, but you're missing plantings here, 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 and here. And we expect you to fulfill that planting obligation or propose something that in kind that would, again,
Mhm.
fulfill that obligation. Just to touch on the numbers. And I think Delia put it together. Under the original landscaping plan, 127 trees, over 1,000 shrubs, and over 700 plants. So, and it's fairly apparent just walking that site in a number of areas that there are none of those plantings on site as to the original
Mhm.
plan.
Mhm.
And so I guess I'm a little, just me personally, I'm disappointed that perhaps the owner didn't instruct you in terms of this is what the commission was looking for under that enforcement order last year. Then here we are back 7 or 8 months later, and we still don't have that. So that's the concern, and I'm not sure, maybe you could shed some light on that, perhaps, why that wasn't followed through, because that was really the primary issue at hand at that moment in time.
Not sure that I can.
Okay, fair
I think, we engaged Monique and, she was asked, as she said, she's coming at this anew. So she
Sure.
was asked to evaluate,
Sure.
what was there and what at this time she would recommend. And, obviously, we didn't give her the scope of work, we probably should have.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I really scratched my head. It didn't seem overly complicated in the sense of, I thought everybody came away with a sense of that was explicitly what the commission was looking for. To demonstrate that the proponent had fulfilled his obligations under the order of conditions, and here we are months and months later, and we've fallen short of that
So what
charge.
just let me put it in my own words, so
Sure.
I get it right. What you're really looking for is for the proponent to take the approved plan.
Yes.
Show what has been done, what areas have been done, what areas haven't been done, and what's proposed as an alternative to those areas that were not done.
Or the first two are critical. And if you'd like to make a proposal for an alternative approach, I guess that's okay, but I guess that creates issues for us in terms of a modified plan that hasn't gone through public comment, that what we're really looking
Yeah.
for is to really define what is there and what isn't there in regard to the survey, and then we should take it from there.
But I think there has to be some level of truing up of whatever is proposed relative to what was approved
Right.
originally. So it's not just what is there, what was done or not done, and what is proposed. It's truing up how those differ.
Okay.
Because there
I get
was
that.
something that was
Sure.
approved when the building was constructed.
And I think I would take that a step further and say it's not just what, you're gonna recommend now that is going to differ from the approved plan. The idea, and this is clear in the enforcement order, is that either plant what was on the approved plan or propose something, recognizing that that was an overly ambitious plan because there are existing plantings, right?
Yeah.
But the enforcement order required that you still plant within those approved areas. That was approved by NRC, it was approved by ZBA. So to change that now is not,
Difficult.
right,
Yeah.
that's not what the commission is suggesting.
So can I
It
ask
is-
a question?
Let me just,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
so it is basically taking that approved plan, highlighting what has already been either planted, but I think those are all actually within the development, except for the landscape bed.
And maybe a little up by, Wall Road too, maybe.
That's what I mean, the landscape bed. which is-
Yes,
right.
which is a landscape bed.
It's not a mitigation plan.
No mulch on
No,
that.
yeah.
Mulch
no
there
placement,
today.
proposed
yeah.
mulch, so,
what has been planted or existing vegetation on
Or
site
existing.
that has equivalent resource value.
Correct.
Right.
That's
So
right.
typically what we see is an area of coverage that is looking to be replanted. So this was part of the original proposal, you know, there was this amount of area and these trees, shrubs and herbaceous plantings, they fulfill the coverage within that square footage. Right, so trees are 10 foot on center, which is 100 square feet. Shrubs are 5 foot on center, which is 25 square feet, and herbaceous plantings are generally 1 foot on center. And that, you know, we look at that to say, yes, we agree that this coverage will adequately, you know, revegetate that area, and the goal being that all of these areas adjacent to the wetlands, not in the wetlands, I mean, some of the plans that you proposed, it looked like they're, and I'm not sure because we're looking at a sketch, but it looked like some of those were within the wetlands. We're looking to enhance the buffer zone capacity, so all those lawn areas that are
Lawn.
lawn and
Today.
very bare, that the goal
Right.
was to revegetate those. That's what we're looking for.
Okay.
And there was a high natural resource value in terms of restoring the capacity to buffer pollutants and so forth for the waterways from the plans that were approved.
Right.
So what we're looking, you know, it's fine if there's existing vegetation that is providing a similar or equivalent natural resource value, but you know, throwing down clover because it'll stabilize the bank is not providing the same natural
Right,
resource
that's-
Oh,
value.
and yeah, please do not tell Jim to plant clover.
Yeah, that's a-
That's not native and
One of the wetlands makes it.
that should not be put down anywhere
So
within
that-
resource areas.
And just observationally, I just stopped by the site briefly on the way here and, you know, in those areas, I think it was B and C.
Mhm.
That, you know, there's service berry trees here called out for other plantings and there's nothing there. It's a 1 inch tall grass.
Well,
those
no,
are-
there's also dogwood in there right now.
No,
There's
I'm just
crab-
saying,
there's crab
let me just
apples.
finish.
Yeah.
Where this plan says there should be plantings, there is nothing on,
Where-
on that side.
Where the original plan.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not speaking to
Oh,
your
okay,
plan. We're
okay.
going back to just the order of conditions, putting
Okay.
aside your plans just for the moment.
Yeah.
And then if I look at the traveling up Kai's Road, past the entrances where the picnic area is and there's plantings throughout there, there is nothing there. It's just mown grass.
Okay.
And so it's not one little area or this little area. There are swaths of area out there.
So the
That have
idea
not
is
been addressed.
you literally want to remove vegetation.
Not
You-
remove,
The lawn.
in those
Lawn.
areas would be lawn.
There'd be lawn.
Yeah.
So the question I had was, which is new information for me, is the doing a survey of the plants that are there. Because I've done that for my own edification. I didn't bring that for you. But now I'm realizing I should have. But like I counted how many crab apples there were and the blueberry and like all these things that aren't on the original plan, but they're alive there. So you're saying that if we can catalog those
Yeah,
in the
You
areas,
bet.
that
So it's-
those can actually have
Yeah,
some
I mean, so
benefit.
It's really,
If they have equivalent natural
If they have
resource value,
equivalent-
yeah.
and then taking this plan and updating this plan.
So the trouble is that plan doesn't exist anywhere for me to work on.
Um,
Well,
So,
it does exist somewhere.
well,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist.
It does.
Well, okay, but it doesn't exist in
Yeah.
a CAD document. I have asked for this document several times. So if,
Jim owns this document. He paid for it. He can get it.
I'm sure, do we spend current
Sardinia?
DSK? They'll
Oh,
get it
it's
from the
DSK.
landscape.
Yeah.
The landscaper.
Who is it?
who is it?
DSK is an architectural firm right in Monument
here.
Square, well regarded. I think they're
Yeah.
doing Concord
Because if
Academy
we can
now.
get this as a CAD document,
Yeah,
then what
They'll
we
get-
can
they'll get-
do
They'll get it.
is we can create overlays,
Right.
Great.
that say you have this, and this presenting right
So it
now.
should be just noted that after or during this process, like after the existing conditions plan was done, there were a number of tree removals that Jim got approval along Millbrook to remove.
Along in that, and
Along that
behind
whole
Walgreens.
swath, yeah.
Okay,
That with the understanding that those were going to be replanted
Replanted.
areas.
so that is in that zone C.
Yes, and beyond. I mean, zone C, your
It's
zone
B and
C,
C anyway.
yeah, stops. That zone C, zone
Goes all over Lowell
BSC
Road.
goes between Kais and Lowell.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I cut them because they felt like very different, and the environments of these two areas felt very different. So it was just helpful for me to separate them. Question for you. So along that, the zone B, you know, I literally hand traced the existing plan to be able to pull this parking lot off because we didn't have a CAD plan. There are a lot of trees there now, so the point would be to catalog those trees, because clearly I can't put trees where there are trees. But then, question for you around the knotweed, so there are a couple areas there where the knotweed is coming up. So,
Yes, that was
so
something else.
much.
Well, that was something else.
They're
well,
supposed
the
to be-
problem is it's across the stream. There is no, I mean, I deal with invasive species for a living. And there's no way that I'm gonna be able to get, even if I came with an excavator and I dug all that out, the knotweed is across the way, so it's gonna come back. So what do I do if, like, let's say the
So
plan,
I think what I would suggest for that, and I understand and appreciate the issues with knotweed, and you're not ever going to dig it up.
Yeah.
Right? But you can overplant it. So should be no knotweed on Jim's site.
there is tons of knotweed on Jim's site.
Yeah,
Well,
in
that's-
fact,
that's-
wasn't
And
it
they
supposed to
have
be a
been
3-year, what was
weeding
it?
it
There was
and-
supposed to be a 3-year plan or something?
Yeah.
for
They've
moving?
been, if you go and look at it, I
Yeah.
took pictures, I actually have pictures with me right now, I just went and took pictures.
Mhm.
It's this big because they go and they pull it and they cut it constantly.
okay, but again, we're not aware of any efforts because we have not got any
Good point.
reports that
None.
we're obligated under the order of conditions for 3 years. So we don't
Yes.
really know what's transpiring out there or
Right.
how
You-
it started.
You have the enforcement order.
I have
do.
the enforcement
Okay.
order right here, yeah,
So
and
that was required to be
I
provided.
read it,
Yeah.
I annotated it,
Yep.
and I don't see anything in it that says that to survey the existing plants for credit. So I didn't,
So I'm gonna read what it
Okay.
says. That you either plant in accordance with that plan or prepare and submit a revised plan responsive to the commission's expectation that wetland resource areas are planted with native trees, plants, shrubs, forbs in the same locations as shown on the approved landscape plan.
so I see that, but I don't see, so I just didn't understand by reading that the plants that were there could
So,
have any
so
credit.
the owner should have transferred that conversation to you
Okay.
because
Yeah.
that was.
It was very clear at the.
He was quite
in
adamant about
September.
that and we heard him and
Okay.
that seemed to make sense to us and we said, sure, during your survey, if you can catalog those and show them to the commission and they're again of equal quality, then that's okay.
Okay,
But again, a little concerned about the translation of our conversations to perhaps, vendors such as yourself doing that work out there.
Yeah.
And I guess it's,
There won't be any miscommunication this time.
yeah,
Well,
no,
it's-
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
I
For
will tell
sure.
you that the commission's kind of tired of this. It's been going on far too long, so we're gonna request that, you guys keep the pedal to the metal. We'd like to see you submit something, I think it's on July 10th for the July 24th meeting, pursuant to the former enforcement order, or else, and I can't speak for the commission, but the commission's gonna be left with very little choice other than to issue another enforcement order with dollars attached to it as a per diem penalty, because at this point, the response to date has been lacking.
I know there was a real problem tracking down the CAD because we worked at it, but I will,
DSK is a very good firm.
I'll chase it down myself.
It's unfathomable they couldn't pull up a electronic version of that landscape.
It's also like
plan.
it's not like it's 20 years old either.
Exactly, that's the point,
Yeah,
right?
and it has to be a
2016, 2018.
DWG, like it has to
Yeah.
be something that I can import and use, or else you're gonna have to build a new one.
I mean, correct me if-
But that's that's the proponent's issue,
Yeah, yeah.
okay? And so there's time frame to consider.
I just, I think the knotweed situation and the fact that it's gotten worse or it exists in an area where it didn't exist. It was part of the original plan is sort of strong evidence of the commission's impatience. Okay,
can I-
the situation is much worse now than it was when the plan was created. Right?
I actually think from the photos that I saw, from the original photos of the site to now, that it's much better.
Yeah.
The knotweed
would
is
agree with that.
totally
Oh, okay,
managed
yeah.
on the
Okay, I
Rise Road
misunderstood
side.
it
Yeah.
that way.
The point is that
Okay.
it, no matter how much you manage.
No, I
it,
understand the knotweed problem.
Yeah.
it-
But I don't know that it was properly managed in the
Right.
beginning.
We have
It
no
should have
knowledge
been-
of-
That I don't know. I can only
Yeah.
speak to when I first saw it in the fall and it was very like
if it wasn't,
manicured,
then-
managed, you know,
Right.
like it was.
I think
Cut
it's,
back.
what, like you said, I think it's cut constantly.
Yeah.
But it, you know, what should have happened, what, I think what was approved was a stem injection approach over a period of time that would have eliminated, especially with the site being
Yeah,
replanted.
if it was
It-
overplanted.
I
and
And
it's
then it was right.
limited.
Disagree, from a landscape standpoint, from being out in the field for 40 years, there is no way that stem injection is going to, first off, eradicate that much without putting so much chemical into the ground. And then because you have the inoculant right across the water, even if I plant, eventually all the knotweed's coming right back. So the only way to keep knotweed off that bank is to keep the bank herbaceous so that we can
So,
cut
so
it.
actually, we have had examples where people have eradicated and had surrounding parcels. And they have done it
I'd
through.
love to see it as a case study. I'd love to see that because
I'm just saying it's
personally,
being done, and
but
it's
I
by
couldn't, as a
overplanting and
professional,
removal
I
initially.
couldn't tell you with confidence
Mhm.
that
No,
what
I
I'm designing
understand,
for
I
you
understand.
would solve a knotweed problem. It seems like I would be misrepresenting what I know.
I'm just telling you that we have seen evidence of it being done.
Julia, how's that new procedure that I've seen people use now with hardware cloth?
We are doing a pilot
Right out here? Good.
right across the way,
Do you know about this?
No,
Yeah, well, we're putting down, what is it? We're putting down,
hardwood cloth.
hardwood cloth essentially, and so as it comes up, as the knotweed comes up, it strangles itself. It can't, it girds itself through the hardware, through the small stems.
Yeah.
The stems are cut. So that might be a successful thing in the future, right? But we don't know yet, do we?
So, and I think it'll take a couple
To
years,
see. whether
Yeah.
it's-
and then we will replant the area. So that, you know, allows, you know, the natives to establish and then
Right,
hopefully outcompete the knot.
where is your pilot?
Right across the street, Macomb Park.
Okay.
Yep. It's not a full coverage of the knotweed that's
No,
out there, but it's,
pilot.
yeah,
You're not gonna do full thing until you know it works.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say you've got a good understanding now?
Yes,
And the prior enforcement order is clear at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess the last question, would you like to continue this until the
There's no continuance.
not continuous, but would you let, oh, that's right, because you've got a file for the July 10th.
Yeah.
So do you think you're gonna, do you want to get back to staff to say if you're gonna be
You
able to
ready?
do that or not?
yeah, we'll look
Yeah,
into
'cause,
it.
well, it really. depends
Especially if
on
you've already
getting-
surveyed, I think that's great,
I've
right?
I've been on it, I'm on it again today, so
Okay.
you know, I don't think it'll be that hard. I think it's a question of getting that plan so that we can put do an overlay on that plan. And then I think it's really just, the only area that gives me pause is the knotweed area, because I don't know how to solve that. Like, I just
Okay.
So I'm
feel like
just
I
gonna-
don't know how to solve it.
I would be more comfortable if the commission comes up with a date certain, because otherwise it's just going to be a back and forth with, well, we can't do this date. So I would prefer if the commission says, you know, so July 10th is where we are,
That's correct.
and that if you cannot do July 10th, then I would suggest they come back here, and that conversation is
In
not a
enforcement.
staff conversation.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah, I will
Okay.
say that in all honesty, I probably won't be able to make a July 10th date, because that means I have to do all of the work. Because you need it submitted by July 10th, right?
Correct.
So I know that's gonna be a rough one for me. So is there,
So it's gonna work for you.
well, I think I would probably I need to get that plan. I have to
Just
have that
assume that you
plan.
get the
Yeah,
plan tomorrow.
So
that
if I
should
get
not
that
be a hard
plan
thing.
tomorrow, I travel twice for conferences. And so I would say whatever the next date is would probably work. It's gonna be
So-
2 weeks later
So,
than the
so my
July.
concern is that.
You're gonna,
we-
you're gonna
we
miss
were
the
supposed to
planting
have
season.
all this planting was supposed to be done last fall. And then You asked for an extension and everything was supposed to be done in the spring. And now here we are, fall has gone by, spring has gone by, and I just don't want to see another planting season go by. This needs to be done this fall.
Yeah.
So,
I would agree with that.
2 weeks from July tenth is July 24th, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So July 24th means an August hearing,
Mhm.
right? And then,
Not a July 24th meeting.
No.
No, no.
July
that's
24th
the
is
middle
the-
So it'd be July 31st.
Well,
August-
August 14th is the next.
Right, so
so
July
if we get approval on August 14th, then reasonably speaking, if we could do a September planting date,
So-
and I
so
would
that
say
is-
a late September to
that is
early.
going to mean that, you guys are working to line up your contractor, line up your plantings. Because, I think
It's not
the
easy
schedule to
getting-
have a July 24th
Correct.
allows you that time, and to have something, in August, you're running out of time. And
The
I,
bulk of,
I'm-
the
I
bulk
mean,
of the
or
work is gonna be
availability,
done
availability.
by-
Availability of natives is not high in the nurseries right now.
Well,
It's
and-
not, it hasn't been high, it's all year.
So
It's
you
been
gotta get
terrible.
orders in soon too.
right,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah, and you're gonna get,
So-
if you get to the tail end of the
Right.
season too, you either
I've
gotta
been doing some
reserve
native
now.
plantings on my own property and
Well, I was just like on North Creek looking for plants, and almost all of the natives are like, they're in repotting mode right now. So we have things coming out in August, things coming out in September. I think New England Wetland Plants actually had a really good stock. We just did an order. So, I mean, we would do most of the plantings ourselves, so it's not like we're hunting other contractors. If there ends up needing to be heavy equipment, then
No,
that's gonna be something
You're
different.
gonna have some tree work though, only a little bit,
Oh, that's
right?
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
You're not gonna. you're not gonna
Yeah,
dig
and the
those.
areas around the floating, the floating, parking deck. Those two areas, I'm gonna hope that I can suggest the typhus that's in there and
So that area has not, that is an
That's-
area that's fully vegetated.
Yeah.
That does
right,
not
so
need
that would,
further
so we
planting.
could,
I think what Delia
That could
said though
count, right?
earlier, no, I think
No,
what she
can't.
said is that the prime motivation is to plant in the areas that are on the
The
existing
uplands.
drawing, so
Yeah.
it's not like if there were some plants down here that you could take credit for, oh, okay, we're not gonna do this planting. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is the commission would like to see the plan generally fulfilled. If there's some changes, some
Yeah,
credit taking, we understand that,
okay,
but we
so the
expect that.
empty areas
Are gonna be-
planted, the
Yes.
areas that are full, but with the wrong things, as long as the wrong things aren't bad things.
Yeah.
Yes,
We
that's
say
right.
what they,
That's right.
okay,
That's
that
right.
was like
Yeah.
third grade level, but it got it,
That's it.
okay,
That's a good
Okay.
explanation.
okay.
Again, maybe a suggestion is you get ahead of maybe the stock, understand what's out there. Because I think it'd be a very difficult position to be in if the ownership does not get this done this year.
Mhm.
It could be an enforcement order, perhaps with.
With money attached, yeah.
With perhaps with money attached, I can't speak for the commission or future actions, but I would say the commission is kind of getting to its wits' end in terms of why
Okay.
this isn't done at this point.
Yep. Okay,
If that's,
so just so I'm clear, will July 24th work? If we, I mean, the idea being.
you have to tell us if July 24th works, we don't know, because we don't know, we haven't seen the plans, and if
Okay.
they're gonna be
Yeah, no,
satisfactory.
So a July 24th submittal.
I'm talking about.
Submittal. Yes, no, I
submittal,
understand.
Oh, yeah,
And
that-
and the
that-
idea being, get it submitted to you with this, I mean, I'm super clear, I get it. So all the empty areas need to have plants in them, the areas that are planted but wrong, we say, what's in it? Is it good stuff? Is it bad stuff? Is there anything has to be changed? And then from there, the big concern is, gotta plant in the fall planting season, which to my eye is like middle September to middle October, kind of in that nice month there.
Mhm.
And then making sure that we've got the plants we need. And if we can't find the plants we need, can we come to you and say, okay, can't find this, tons of this,
Sure,
like, can we?
I think you can talk that out with staff,
Yeah. I agree
Absolutely.
with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and most of the
Usually
good
in a
news is
commission.
I can guarantee you, with the exception of, bucket truck work or heavy equipment work, the garden continuum will do most of the work. So, we're already putting our sights on this.
Yeah.
So that won't be a problem. It really will just be getting your approval, finding the plants that we can find, and then, getting together to say, yeah, can't find these, can I switch it and do these?
Yeah, and I would,
And we'll want to just
See what the-
that's possible, but we want that to be documented so that we
Yes.
can ensure that everything that the commission has approved in terms of numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
Is
getting,
what is being planted.
yeah, I mean, you've already got it on that plan, the set of tables,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
would say, you know, there's your lead spreadsheet, right? And then you come
Yeah.
back and say, this is what we got on site, this is what we don't have on
Yep.
site, and here's how we're gonna
Yep.
accomplish it and so on.
so I have one more question. I know you want to wrap up. In the
15 minutes till the Celtics game.
I'm gonna wrap it up. That's all right. So in the, there was a schedule of plants, I'm gonna lose it right now. There was a schedule of plants, proposed plants. And then there was, a corrected, you know, like a reduced, and then there was a reduced number that was submitted later.
Yes, and we said that modification of the Labadini plan.
Yep,
Was acceptable to work from,
okay,
right?
So-
But
so-
that was never provided to us on that plan.
on
so-
this plan. Okay, so when I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that general spacing, the 10 feet, 5 feet, 1 foot,
Mhm.
when I submit the materials, I'll work on that as best I can. It doesn't always make sense to have
Mhm.
trees 10 foot apart, like some trees really
Yep.
want to be 15 feet apart. So I will,
So we can work with
Okay.
you on that. I think what I would suggest with the Labadini modifications is that you note those on your version of the CAD plan.
Lavadini, is that a name? Is that
That
a?
Yeah.
is the modification that was made,
The second plan, yeah.
the second plan.
Yeah.
That the enforcement order recognizes.
Okay,
So I would suggest that you sort of highlight that in a different color from what you propose as, you know, whatever modifications that you want to make, just so it's clear that this is what was already approved and now what is being approved at this point.
okay, so. Yeah, I think part of it for me is I'm a little buried in the different plans and the different lists and have definitely. So I would say that this is the plan you're talking about, this one that says site planting plan 7/29/15.
That was the approved plan.
Okay, and then there's,
Modification.
and then there was a modification that was on 2019 or 17.
So, I mean, those
We're not-
details,
yeah.
I can't.
Okay, so
Confirm.
that is gonna be important because I need to make sure I'm working off
Yeah,
the right
But
plan.
again, you have to go to ownership, who's
Okay, right.
responsible for all the plans for the project and work with them, maybe his team, to get you to the right place.
Right.
At the
Okay.
right starting point, so you
So
can
I have
be,
10/5/2018
Yeah.
says updates to Concord Market planting plan.
So it's
There's
gonna be
much covered
enforcement
that.
order.
Yeah.
It's gotta be,
It's
And
an
likely
you'll find
enforcement
it.
order.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's
it.
that's what we need to look for.
Yep.
So I would like to,
I'm,
To you.
I'm gonna take care of it.
okay,
okay, so we're leaving it at the moment that you're gonna submit something by the 24th
24th
of
of July.
July
Yep.
for the August.
14 meeting.
If you
August
have,
14th.
you know, kind of straightforward questions, certainly work with staff, so
Yes.
you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
help you kind of hopefully get there on that date, because that planting timeframe is gonna be short at that point.
All right, I feel comfortable with it, it's just as far as knowing that from, if you're giving me a thumbs up in August, that having a month to find the plans is plenty.
Okay.
It's plenty.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
It's-
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, bye-bye.
You too.
All right, other business,
Oh, yes.
2023 planning total report and request for funding. Brian. How are you?
Good, well,
Good.
the doggy,
Yeah.
who's the doggy?
It's my dog.
Oh, what a sweetie.
Yeah.
Very, very sweet. Yeah.
So good evening.
Good evening.
So you want to give us a brief overview of all things Concord Turtle, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be
It's,
great.
Yeah, it's a busy time right now in the blotting turtle world. We're well into nesting season. I actually, on the way here, I got 2 different calls from neighbors and go grab a blatting turtle and stick it in my shed until we can find a radio to put on her.
Hey,
So. We just, I know it's been shared with you, but we just published a paper that kind of summarizes a lot of the work that we've done since 2003. And so, just a real broad stroke summary. The Blandings turtle population that's centered around the Great Meadows impoundments, probably at any given time, maybe 80% of all the turtles are in the impoundments themselves. And then there's a bunch of other wetlands that actually extend a few miles downriver and then over to Elm Brook. But they're mostly in the impoundments, a fair number in Moore Swamp too. The kind of catchable turtles, which are usually turtles that are about 5 or 6 years old, ones that are longer than 110 millimeters in carapace length. The number of those turtles were estimated to be about 135 in 1973. And then that had dropped to about 55 around when we started working with them in the early 2000s. So now after, well, really since 2007, so 17 years of protecting nests and head starting turtles, we've released about 750 head started turtles, including the cohort that was just very recently released, and 180 other hatchlings that we weren't allowed to head start. So there are now probably about 450 total Blandings turtles at Great Meadows, about maybe 275, 300 of which are in that category of, older than 5 or so years, bigger than 110 millimeters. So the population has grown a lot since the early 2000s. Another way of looking at that is just catch per unit effort. So when we trap for Blandings turtles in and around the impoundments, when we first started in 2004, 2005, for every 100 trap days, putting 100 traps for one day or 20 traps for 5 days, we were catching about 2 Blandings turtles. Most recently, we caught well over 20 Blandings turtles with the same amount of effort. So the population's much increased. And so much so we're working with the state, and we're expecting probably over the course of the next 5 or 6 years to tail down the head starting effort, and eventually, hopefully, to discontinue it at least for some time, so that we are focusing on protecting nests, but not necessarily head starting the young turtles from this population. Unless it's another issue is it's up to the state is whether they want to consider eventually using the Great Meadows population, because it is now in current form, it's probably the second largest population in Massachusetts, maybe in New England. So potentially using the Great Meadows population as a source population to help restore, repopulate other populations.
What would be the ideal population?
Yes, I was gonna ask that
Carrying
exact question.
capacity?
Yeah, so carrying capacity is a great question, but it's essentially impossible to arbitrarily figure out. So in essence, carrying capacity is something that you determine empirically, right? And as far as we can tell, we haven't quite gotten there yet. It's
Are they in real competition with like Eastern paint turtles, or is it?
not so much.
Not
no.
so much, okay.
Yeah, we first estimated when we were trapping a lot in 2004, 2005, we were originally marking painted turtles, and we marked in 1 year alone, I think we marked maybe 900 individuals, and we were estimating there were about 3,000 painted turtles at Great Meadows. There are a lot of painted turtles, and no, they occupy pretty different niche space. Painted turtles are much more in open water areas. They eat rather different things. Blandings turtles are in pretty heavily vegetated marsh kind of habitat.
Okay.
And there are a lot of snapping turtles as well.
Yes.
Great Meadows too.
Yeah.
They're harder to count because they seem smarter. So they're less likely to be recaptured. If you catch them once, they don't seem to like it, and they tend to go back and scrap.
Jenny Dugan Swamp, Blandings turtle?
It's not. It's an interesting spot. Not as far as we know. Nobody's ever reported one, though not far.
It's heavily vegetated, that's why I asked.
It is not so far away. where the, former heronry was on, what's the name of that swamp? That is, north of 117.
So Dunge Hole Meadow is
Yeah.
what,
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's by the
So-
White Pond Well,
Okay.
And then on the
right.
Sudbury side of that wetland,
yeah.
there were a couple of blading turtles that have been observed in the maybe early 1990s. But we actually tried, we helped somebody try and trap there sometime around 2000, never caught any, and nobody's reported them since. In Concord, the only other blading turtles that we know of are, really part of the Great Meadows population. They extend, there are a few turtles that hang out in Elm Brook alongside Virginia Road. And then they go downriver into Carlisle and Bedford and Billerica a little bit, but just very small number of turtles.
Brian, what's the lifespan?
There's an individual that was known to be at least 83 years old when caught in Michigan a few years ago. That was a minimum estimate. Likewise, we have a number of individuals that were marked as adults, which would mean for a female, almost certainly at least 18 or 20 in 1971. So they would have been born, no later than about 1950. They're still doing well, so they're
Encouraging.
well in their 70s. Yeah, so there are definitely blading turtles there that are older than me.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so it's going really well.
Mhm.
A question, that we're only gonna learn about over time is to what extent the increase in population, and again, if you think demographically, right, it takes these turtles 20 years to grow up. And most of the head started turtles, so all the head started turtles are younger than that. We really started head starting significantly in 2009. So there's this kind of bulge of turtles that's kind of worked their way over the years.
An
Into,
explosion in a few years.
yeah, well, it's a baby boom, right? It's a
Right.
baby boom where turtles is gonna kind of work their way through the system. And it'll be interesting to see, but working with animals as long-lived as blading turtles is a sort of a decades kind of thing. Right, to see,
They're not fruit flies.
they're not fruit flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so to see over time, to what extent the population will be able to sustain itself. And again, with sort of minimal intervention, like just protecting nests, we'll see.
Okay.
The only concern I would just note is good news is we've seen over the years, the blading turtles are pretty good at avoiding the major roads. There are a few individuals that cross Route 62 occasionally, and sometimes they make it. There was one that didn't. There was another turtle that was killed a few years ago on Virginia Road. But there have been very few blading turtles killed on the road. So this year and last year were the first time in the more than 20 years we've been working with them, when there was an adult female killed on one of the low traffic subdivision roads where they were nest. Yeah, just last Friday, there was a female killed on Monson Road. And last year, right near my house, there was a female killed on Peter Spring Road. So I have no idea, two instances, can't say much.
Yeah.
But,
Bike trail. How's the bike trail?
Sort of a separate issue, obviously doesn't relate to the animals killed on the roads. If I were gonna just guess, living in one of those neighborhoods, just the incredible density of delivery traffic, and a lot of delivery drivers drive fast because, they're incentivized to. It could kind of be a problem.
Yeah.
Even in some of those really quiet roads where normally, and blading turtles are this big, they're not that hard to see.
But there was a hatchling on the rail trail that had
Yes.
been run over.
There was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, we found, there have probably been others, but there was one that we happened to find because they're hard to find. So right now, it's remains an issue. There's a lot more bicycle traffic than I've lived in the neighborhood for 31 years now. There's over 32 years. There's a lot more bicycle traffic than there was. But you know, again, just speaking from my perspective, from, you know, what I know of Blandings Trails, I'm glad it's not paved because.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The
agree with
the
that. Oh, yeah.
density and the average speed of the bicycles would be much greater.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Problems would be greater. Yeah, but generally.
Are they nesting in the asparagus field? Is that a site?
It is a site, so the former asparagus field.
Right.
Right now, it's been leased since the nineties to the Bemis's.
Oh,
and
yes.
Hutchins
it's
Farm.
it's all-
And nobody grows, there is a little bit of asparagus, it still maintains
Still in that one
itself,
area?
feeds
Yeah,
itself.
I was wondering about
And
that.
that area we've replanted into perennial wildflowers
Oh.
and grasses.
Huh.
beautiful.
So, yeah, it looks right now, if you
Mm.
go.
I will, I'm out there in a couple months.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most of the turtles nest in people's yards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're mostly, and they nest along a lawn, so we have a turtle that's actually nesting tonight on Bonnievale Road in Bedford.
Huh.
One of our turtles is all the way up on Davis Road in Bedford.
Oh, yeah,
So basically from Davis Road
yeah.
all the way down the cave, very rarely near Sleepy Hollow, but mostly to my neighborhood, the
Mhm.
Peter Spring Road
Yeah, yeah.
neighborhood. So it's all kind of a whatever.
So they must be
3
on the
mile-
Massport land, if they're over there.
Yeah, not on the Massport land itself proper.
But around
They're,
it,
they are,
around
oh, I'm
Brookhaven.
sorry, on the, yeah, sorry, on the Massport land, yes, occasionally, but not on the Air Force Base. Cause I was over talking to the Air Force Base folks. But yeah, there are maybe like 3 to 5 Blandings turtles that are on that Virginia Road area. They're mostly on the north side of, let's see, no, I'm
Right.
sorry, south side of Virginia Road.
Towards the national park.
Yeah, towards the national park. But they occasionally go back and forth. So they do use the Massport land a little bit. And there are wood turtles you guys have also been helping us with.
Yeah.
It's really, the wood turtle situation is a lot less.
Yeah.
rosy.
Yeah.
They're, you know, it's population, as far as in recent years, we know of one adult male and one juvenile that live in Elmbrook alongside, off the edge of runway 11.
Hmm.
And then there is a small population that we're trying to supplement. But a population of maybe a half dozen individuals that are on the Acton Water Department land, right on the edge of Concord over along Fort Pond Brook.
So that's true throughout New England. I mean, that's just true throughout the area. There's just fewer and fewer wood turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All through northeastern Massachusetts. And there's a high likelihood that both Blandings turtles and wood turtles will be listed under the Federal Endangered Species
Oh,
Act,
boy.
possibly this autumn.
Really?
Box turtles too?
No,
No.
no, because box turtles are rare here,
Yeah.
but further south, they're,
Okay.
they're less. rare.
Okay.
Yeah, so in Massachusetts, they're listed under the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act.
Yeah.
They're quite rare in Concord. In Concord, they're essentially gone.
Yeah.
There are a few individual adults scattered around, but really no
I
population.
remember 40 years ago seeing one over in the Estabrook. That's the
Oh.
only time I've ever seen a box turtle up here.
I've never seen one myself in Concord.
Yeah.
But I've gotten a number of reports and I've heard of, there was box turtle found on the Massport property
Oh.
some years ago. There were a couple of box turtles in the woods over by Gowling Swamp
Oh.
near me that were seen, maybe the same individual
Oh,
we've
yeah.
seen a couple of times,
A
but
member of our conservation restriction stewardship committee said he saw one. I think he had a picture of it over at White Pond a
Oh,
couple
really?
weeks ago.
Wow.
yeah. If
Was
you,
that this
if
year?
you have that record and you have the picture,
Yeah, I think he did have a picture, but I can double check with him and I can.
Yeah,
I can.
that'd be
let you know about
wonderful.
that. Yeah.
so there are, a very small number.
Yeah.
But we've never gotten any kind of evidence, even of more than one in the
Yeah.
same spot. Right, so it's probably a few, and those guys can live to be well over 100. So, so a few scattered individuals have managed to persist.
Yeah.
No real population here.
And Brian, I know the request is for 4,000.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us just briefly what how you're gonna use those funds, just so the commission knows?
Yeah, sure. So what we're planning to do in this coming year is to do some more trapping to monitor the population at Great Meadows. But the bulk of the work is we radio track a cohort of about 20 adult females and usually about a dozen or so formerly Head Started or juveniles. Juveniles were, in particular, we're trying to track some of the older Head Started individuals that are around 15, because they're likely to start nesting themselves
Sure.
too. So we want to document that when we can. So it supports that. We go out frequently to find the turtles. And then this time of year, we have 2 people out every evening, radio tracking the approximately 20 adult females, trying to figure out where they are, find their nests. And then when the nests are getting ready to hatch, we have to go out every day to all the nests. And in the last few years, we've been protecting about 13 or so nests a year. So we got to check each of those every day and wait for the babies to come out and then collect them. and hold on to them usually for a month or 2 until we can place them in school. Yeah, so that's what the money would be
You bet.
helping support.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
so our request to the Zoo New England Field Conservation Department would be, and we're really grateful. It's now, we've had NRC support since at least 2005, I think.
Wow.
2003.
Wow.
2003.
That's what my records show.
That's
Awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Too cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for more than 20 years,
20 years,
yeah, we're very, very grateful.
Well, thank you for all the work. It looks like it's been a good success and hopefully it'll continue. So thank you for your efforts.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so anyway, that's our request is for $4,000.
Okay.
Do we need a vote on that? or-
Yes, could I have a motion and a vote?
Okay, I move that we approve of the request for Brian Windmiller for 2020 for the Blandings turtle research of $4,000
From the
Second.
wetlands account.
from the wetlands account.
Second,
Thank you, Nick. And the vote, Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
aye,
Bill,
Aye.
Sarah,
I,
and I am an I as well. Thank you, Brian.
Very well.
Yeah,
Very much.
have a good summer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm on a totally unrelated matter.
Yeah.
I'm totally intrigued by the hardware cloth thing with.
Oh, yeah.
weed.
Yeah.
So that's so cool.
Yeah.
Where is your hardware cloth?
It's at
experiment?
McCone Park,
Wow.
right next to Millbrook.
Mhm.
And if you Google mesh net and Japanese knotweed.
Yeah, I was
come
just
up
while I was.
Were
there.
you?
Yeah.
Googling
So,
it some.
you know, basically, as it girdles.
Yeah, yeah.
Keeps growing and then it
Starts to root
eventually
guard?
Yeah,
starts at.
and like everything
carbohydrates.
with knotweed, it's, you know. it's
But are
a-
there
some
other
years
things
you
that grow
need to
through
do
it, or you just do
Nothing.
that for, I
You
mean,
do-
nothing?
So I think you leave it up for a couple of years.
Oh, and then you remove it.
And then you take it out and then you plant.
well, there should be none, when there's none more coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
No more coming
Right.
up, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Way cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
for
See you
that.
later.
Thanks, Brian.
thank you.
Thank you.
The trouble is, there's your property and
Everybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no.
So, but you know, Richard Foreman had knotweed, you know, along his. On his property, and then it's all adjacent to him and on the other side of the brook, I think it's Swamp Brook. And he got rid of the knotweed, he planted with, you know, native shrubs, and he doesn't have knotweed on his property anymore.
Great.
This is like,
did he
10
inject it and stuff, or what did he?
you know, I was trying to remember, I don't recall how he removed the knotweed.
There are
Mhm.
places where it's unbelievable, like the Minuteman Trail in Arlington, Lexington area.
Or right behind the,
I know.
where's that, right behind the kind
Concord
of,
lumber or?
yeah, the Concord lumber, on
Right.
that strip by the
Well,
little
that's what we
wetlands
have.
here.
That's where
Oh,
we
that's
have
where it
the-
is.
That's
the
where
pilot
you can-
project.
Thank goodness. I mean, I go by there. I'm just
How big an
I'm just
area-
tempted to go in and,
It's
How
about
big an
3,000
area?
square
did you
feet,
do?
yeah, it's a lot.
How many?
about 3,000 square feet.
You did with hardware? No.
Yeah,
Wow, that's.
That's a good
lot.
demonstration.
Yeah.
That's a fairly significant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
30 by 100. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
so that was Will and,
that's fantastic, because that place is out of control.
you know, some of the conservation land volunteers. Yeah, I mean, it's not the whole area. There's a lot more knotweed out there.
Yeah. No, you
But it
could-
was
But you'll
just
see
to,
if you
along
can,
the edge
it's
there.
not cheap, that hardwood cloth. is-
Mm.
So we just,
Really?
I know.
But you can, I just say this, can you reuse it? I guess not. I guess after.
Yeah,
you-
I mean,
think
it's
it's
galvanized steel.
Yeah, why not?
It's galvanized. The last-
Dirty.
That's true.
A
That's true.
little bent, who
Fine.
cares?
Yeah.
Right?
I reuse my garden fencing for 20 years. So, sorry, we should
All right, we'll
continue.
continue on. Emergency certification, Delia.
So the land trust has a beaver dam issue, and it's basically replacing an old and failing beaver deceiver. Mike Callahan would do the work. And so we would like your
Quick motion
Approval.
and a vote.
Yes,
Yep.
because I haven't issued it. Usually I come with you and I ask you to ratify, but it is looking for you to approve that emergency service.
Sure.
We haven't issued.
I move that we approve emergency certification for Beaver Dam. Is it for dam removal?
Beaver deceiver
Beaver deceiver
replacement.
replacement 75 Butchicks Hill Road.
Second,
And the vote, Gary,
I,
Nick,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Sarah,
I,
and I'm an I as well. And two COCs, Delia or Bert? You want to just touch on it?
I checked both of them. So 141 Hawthorne was the septic replacement that was here just a few months ago, so it's a partial. They still have some
Ah,
monitoring to do, a couple plants to replace, but they're trying to sell the property, so they need that partial COC to do that. And 42 Ridgeway it was all good.
Okay,
All right, I move that we issue certificates of compliance, a partial certificate for Hawthorne Lane Realty Trust, 141 Hawthorne Lane, DEP file 137-1657. And a complete certificate of compliance for the Bentley built for 42 Ridgeway Road, DEP file 137-1169.
Second.
all right, and the vote, Gary,
I,
Nick,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Sarah,
I,
and I'm an I as well, and other business is the next item. Let's see, first up, what do we got here? All right, so does Bill,
Do I agree to this?
yes, you did. I'm just making sure you're still locked in. Okay, good. Well, if I could have a motion on this first item
I move,
before he changes his mind.
I nominate William Kameza as NRC liaison to the CPC.
second,
All right, and the vote, Gary,
I,
Nick,
Aye.
Bill?
Can I vote? Can I vote?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right, Sarah?
I,
All right,
So-
and
so-
I'm in as well.
I think you want to not nominate, I think you want to recommend appointment.
Yeah, okay, recommend appointment of
Uh.
William Kameza as NRC liaison to CPC.
Yeah,
Okay.
does the select board do the appointment or?
no, that's
No.
it's your liaison.
Okay, so it's just a recommendation.
No,
No,
that's.
it's
It's just
No.
moving to appoint.
Yes,
I moved
moving
to
to
appoint.
appoint.
So, yeah,
Okay.
Yes,
the motion was to appoint him.
yes.
Yes, so that was it, that was
And that
proper.
was, yeah,
Well, it was to
yeah,
nominate.
you said nominate.
Oh, I did, okay.
But
Oh,
you,
oh, that's what it
moved-
says here.
right, I know,
That's what
I
it
know.
says.
Sorry.
but what you wanted to do was move to
Ah.
appoint.
I moved.
So
to
can we just
appoint
footnote that?
William Kameza as
That was an
NRC
appointment,
liaison.
not a nomination.
Okay,
Yeah, correct.
okay, thank you. All right, and then let's take a look at the draft mitigation policy.
I
Yeah,
just had one comment on it, which I found that table at the end very confusing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you have to, my thought is multiple tables, this case, that case, just 2 or 3
yeah,
examples.
I think you could say, illustrative example or something
The
like that.
trouble
to
is you're
show,
trying to
you
do
know.
2 examples in one table and that really
Well,
confuses me.
I
no,
know,
it's,
this
it's
is-
one example.
yeah,
It is.
this is one
That-
example, so it's basically saying,
I'm too dumb to understand. it.
No, but I see
But it's a
where
complicated example.
it's an
It
example
spans-
where you're also
You're-
using
yeah.
some of your mitigation in the 5-to-1.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
10-to-1 without saying, oh, footnote, you
Yeah.
can do this and for because it's
Right.
more effective, et cetera, so.
Yeah, so and we do have projects from time to time that
Do
have
this.
mitigation requirements for that no build zone and that outer buffer zone, which
Right.
is different, so.
Mm.
So I-
It is kind of hard to make it clear.
But I
in
think
there.
that the
I'm not sure
policy
we
makes
need
it clear.
I'm not
I
sure
think
we
you
need
could
it.
just say, illustrative example number 1,
Yeah,
and a sentence saying, mitigation is achieved in spanning both the no build
Yeah.
zone and the other
Yeah.
zone.
mhm.
So,
And
so
then
you,
illustrative example number 2.
right, and so when you say that example, would you want a simplistic plan or just the 2?
Yeah,
Because the plan could be the same, and it could just say you can approach it
I
this
think,
way.
you-
Yeah, I'd avoid a plan
So-
just because we
Right.
don't have, I wouldn't want to use.
Okay, so then this could, to Gary's point, you could either do 2 tables,
Yeah.
or you could footnote it and just simply
Yeah.
say,
Yeah. I
in
think
this
we should
case,
say
we've
two
taken
tables.
advantage
In this
of the
case,
25.
mitigation is being satisfied in 2 different zones.
Yes,
Right,
In this
case,
example,
it's one.
mitigation is all.
That's true, yeah.
yeah, so you can handle it both ways, just to clarify that.
yeah, it's
Right, that's the only, I agree, that's the only confusion I had was if I was just
Yeah.
reading this for the first time, I'd say, where, I got 0 impact, but I'm
Yeah.
mitigating, it,
Yeah.
just to clarify that,
Mhm.
you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know?
Yep,
So, right, because the first gut instinct is, there's nothing there, so,
Yeah.
but I got mitigation.
yeah,
And again, that's kind of it's kind of their a choice to a degree, always like to attack the 25 because there's more
Yeah.
value there. But
Mhm.
again, maybe we could just somehow clarify that or footnote it or.
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think that's great. Visuals here, that's very helpful and.
Yeah.
You could almost, if you wanted to, you could make up a spreadsheet that someone
Yeah.
could use.
Yeah.
That might be helpful.
Template.
Yeah, otherwise I didn't have any.
No, it is. Oh, good.
Yeah, it's a great, that's a,
Yeah,
it'd be very helpful in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right,
do you want to
Approve it.
approve that as amended, or do you want to have that come back onto another meeting?
I'm okay with approving it as amended.
sure.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick, you want to take that on?
Yeah, I move that we approve the draft mitigation requirements policy.
To be amended as discussed.
To be amended as
As
noted or
discussed,
discussed, yeah.
As discussed, to be amended as discussed.
I second that.
Thank you, Bill. And the vote, Gary,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Sarah,
I,
and I am an I as well. Thank you, Bart. And then lastly, some admin approvals.
Mhm.
We got 3 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so the first one is there was a leak in a private sewer line that was identified by Public Works, and Milltown Plumbing has proposed a repair of that. It is in, it's 1732 Main Street. They're going to basically put in a new box, and otherwise they would have had to remove a number of trees. And
Is this a
the,
septic system or a?
it's a sewer line.
town sewer?
Hmm,
It's a sewer, private sewer line.
Oh,
Um,
private sewer, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I understand, but now as I'm saying that, I'm wondering where they're disposing
Yeah, I
of
wonder-
material. But it is septic that is, but the resource area is a canal that does not connect to the river. So it is in the riverfront area, but it's not, the river is not the resource area,
Ah.
it's close by. In any event, they're gonna put up erosion controls. They will either sod the slope when they're done with the work. It's going to be, done by hand.
hmm,
So we thought it best proceed under an admin approval because
Okay,
it's pretty minimal in terms of the work that needs to be done in our jurisdiction and
Okay.
better sooner rather than later. Talbot, tree removal at 243 Heathbridge Road, that ended up being 4 trees. Is that where they landed? Or was it 5?
It was 5.
It was 5,
Yeah, I
okay,
can
in resource areas, they had initially proposed more, and Will went to go and check them out, and they are hazards that would compromise the house. And so we are recommending those be approved, and then the 48 Plainfield Road is the swim beach at White Pond, and they're, following the ADA path construction. There has been some failure, just that happens as you know, and so there are some tree removals that are within jurisdiction and some without. There are 4 that are within jurisdiction that Will has looked at and agrees that there's issues with structural. They have concerns with
Yeah.
that, and he agrees that they should be also taken down.
okay, good. And any issues for those?
No,
Okay, everybody's good, Sarah, you good? Okay. I think we're all good with that. I think we are adjourned for the evening.
son, that's